Well, I feel I'm a very average fella. I got lucky. My earliest memory that I could date, I was 2.5 years old. I was supposed to be the page boy at an uncle and aunt's wedding. And they told me how to march alone. I only wanted to march with my grandfather. So they replaced me with a girl. The flower girl took my place. It is hard to believe that I'm here at this point. But it goes much faster in the early years. It means it's the beginning of the end.
The fact that my brother is turning 80 sounds enormous.
It's like yesterday, he was like 20 and I was a little kid, and unbelievable.
Monroe is such a unique person. His sense of humor is incredible. His stories, his mind, his memory.
And he's just a regular guy. And he's warm, friendly, loving, caring. And he's a true friend, a good friend.
My father influenced me greatly because he was very conservative, and he always felt that the pressure was going to come back next month.
I mean, all we heard was you save for a rainy day, and you never know what tomorrow's going to bring, and if we can't pay the rent, and if we can't this, and if we can't that. I mean, I practically pinched every penny and dime till it would break.
His father was very influential in his life. Monroe's a lot like his father, hardworking, terrific businessman.
Abe was a strong man. He was successful in the Depression when no one could make money. He made a living because he had a great personality. He could always sell coats.
He was a salesman and he was likable, and I learned a lot from him. You don't take no for an answer, but you don't fight with the customer. You bring them back something they do like. I met my first wife in a funny way. It was on a beach in Long Beach.
My father went into the ocean for a swim, and he came back out of the ocean, and my mom was on his blanket, and she never got off.
I said, "Hi, how are you? Who are you?" So she said, "I'm Henny. The girls tell me this blanket belongs to a fellow named Monroe, and everybody sits on it. So you can sit on it too." I said, "Thank you very much."
One of the things that he would always say to her is, "Henny, I'm glad that I married you and not some stranger." That was always an inside joke between the two of them.
Their love was very, very deep, and there was a lot of mutual respect. And I would see how not only did they work beautifully together, but they also had a rhythm.
A funny story that I would remember would be waking up early in the morning to my aunt and Henrietta clanking dishes together at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning and saying to my uncle, "Doesn't that ever bother you? Doesn't it ever wake you up hearing all those dishes at 6 in the morning?" And he would say, "Oh, it's music to my ears."
I used to hear about like the early days when, there was like, when he was leaving, he'd like, call over the loudspeaker or something like that, like, "Henny Penny, I love you." And
in business, they worked very closely together, and they enjoyed life together, and they were very giving and kind.
They shared their personal life, their business life. They loved each other, and they showed their love.
My mother was crazy about my father. She was very loyal to him, and she just always was behind him. She was a great life partner.
That's the most marvelous miracle when you become a dad. When I had my own baby son, I couldn't wait to come home at night. If the kid be just sleeping in the crib, you look and you feel so proud.
I remember my father used to come home at night from work, and in the wintertime it got dark early. As a kid, you don't know what time it is. It would seem like forever at night. He used to come in the door, and he used to come and run to greet my dad, and "Hey, Daddy's here."
Well, the middle son, is always the best. It's like when you make pancakes. The first one never comes out right, and the last one is kind of skimpy. So the middle always comes out the best. So I was always the favorite, and I still am.
Being the youngest child was always meant that you got cut out of things because you were too young. It also meant that as I got older, I had a lot more liberties when I was a teenager, I feel, than my brothers did. My oldest brothers broke the ice for me, and I just went right through.
He's very good to his children, an unusual father, and devoted to all his sons, regardless of what their path is. He follows them.
My father started going to Long Beach in 1932. It's always been in the family law, both sides, my mother's side and my father's side.
We grew up in that house on Olive Street, and a lot of memories from that house. Different things that happened, different people. The downstairs apartment was always rented to different people. We were always interacting with different people.
My mother loved Long Beach. I think she always wrote about it and liked it very much.
She started to take a master's degree in library science and discovered how horribly run the Long Beach Library was, and told Monroe about it. And little by little, he became interested because she influenced him.
So I started coming to library board meetings regularly, and my wife was right, they were doing everything wrong. So I filed to run for the library board, and my wife gathered about 40 women as volunteers. We set up 6 telephones in my basement, and my wife ran a real campaign.
Enid was his campaign manager.
And there was never anything before in Long Beach that had to do with politicking.
He really
for a library
campaigned
board.
door to door with his children.
I remember we used to stand in front of the supermarket with my dad, and we'd say hello to people. We went door to door, saying hello to people. He introduced himself. He was the underdog. We learned a lot about how to win friends and influence people, and watched the newspaper headlines came up. It was my father's name on the headline of the local newspaper. It was exciting.
It was a tremendous bonding, and it was a tremendous thrill when we did win. And it was also my birthday.
People were very angry, the people on the board. And one by one, I replaced every one of them.
The library is what it is today, I would say, because Monroe started things rolling.
My father, when I graduated college, gifted me money, and I was in business with myself for a while. About 10 years later, I merged with my father. He separated from his partner, and we went on together from that time.
It wasn't your typical office setting that you'd expect. There was a lot of shouting back and forth across the coats and from one end to the other.
There was always a lot of strong opinions in the business. My father wanted to do something one way, and my grandparents wanted to do something else, and they had to work things out. It was always an adventure.
Sometimes, they'd come home from work arguing already over something that had happened that day. That's before they even started with the things family concerned arguments. But they thrived off, off of the whole thing. It just worked for them.
My mom was a very good mother too. But when you go to business, you go more to the dad. But my mother would come down and help me in the business early days. She would help with the books and help take the cash. So she was a big help.
For many years, because Monroe worked for his father, and it kind of prevented him from fulfilling himself. And when Monroe had this idea for what became Burlington Coat Factory, his father really didn't think it was he could do it.
He pressed upon me that I may bankrupt the business. And he had literally hundreds of people tell me not to do it. Everybody he knew, he says, talk to my son, he's going to destroy the business.
My grandfather was very protective. He almost treated my dad like a baby, like he was afraid something would happen to him. He was very protective, didn't want to take any chances in business, and didn't want to work hard. He was against any kind of risk anyway, and that was a big risk. It was all the cards on the table, all the money on the table. He was against it very strongly.
To put your own money on the line and basically risk your family's future based on some business vision you have when you don't know whether it's going to work or not, that takes a lot of courage.
I think the deciding factor was really basically his wife. because when he mentioned he wanted to buy the Burlington store, she said, I have some money and you go ahead and you just buy it. We'll make it.
And the day I got the call, we're having the closing, I told my dad I'm going for the closing. He cursed me a little bit. And he said, go into the bookkeeper and she'll give you a check. I said, no, I don't need the check. He says, what do you mean you don't need a check? I said, my wife's giving me the money. You were worried that I'm going to jeopardize the business. He says, you're going to take money from a woman? Pooh on you. How could you do that?
I think it was a journey. I think it just didn't happen overnight. And everybody put in long hours, hard work, and because of all that good work and my father-in-law's part, I think he's very brilliant in that respect. He has very good insight in making decisions.
There was a certain real savvy to him. You know, he analyzed things, and he understood money always.
And they sold the first coat for the wrong price, and I always tell that story. And I was like, oh, well, it's for good luck.
Originally, the one store was so successful, I would have stopped at the one because it did much better than my wholesale business ever did.
Very successful. I mean, it was successful. And we really weren't thinking to growing into a multi-billion-dollar company. We were thinking of, just growing it to make some money.
Someone once asked me when I got out of college, and I think we had 8 or 10 stores, how far we could go, and I thought maybe 50. And we were probably at 50 within another 3 years.
At a certain point, I remember him saying that he wanted to have them from coast to coast. And we laughed and laughed.
It was always like a huge family operation, and we're fortunate that our families go so far back together because it makes it very beautiful for us and our children.
I know that Monroe got a lot of pleasure out of the fact that his sons were in the business and extended family members, and it was where he felt most comfortable, and he had always his friends and family surrounding him.
In a way, it's like you never left home. The dynamic in our case just happened to really work out very well. And we each did our thing, and we each had the business prospered and grew.
When we went public in June of '83, the amount of money was astronomical to me.
And it was too good to be true. We thought something would happen. Something was going to fall apart. It was too good to be true.
That was the time of IPOs. It was when companies, the only way an owner of a company could really cash out is by selling stock in the company.
And I was very lucky. I had very good people with me, a good team of people, because when you get that size, you certainly outgrow any original owners you have. And you need a good staff to do it. You can't do it on your own.
He had the Midas touch. Everything he touched just, boom, worked wonderful.
When my mother was sick, I think it was hard on the entire family. Of course, because my father lived with my mother. It was hardest on him because he saw it every day, and he saw the deterioration of my mother, and he saw her suffering.
She was a real hero. In fact, the doctor would say many people in her condition would be grouchy, and she was always nice to everyone. And she was a real inspiration.
We were engaged, and we always went to visit Henny in the hospital, and he was always sitting by her side, really caring 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what we saw, that's what he did.
That he said, I want you to know that family comes first, business comes second.
His priorities changed to taking care of my mother. And she actually lived 4.5 years after the diagnosis. I don't think they expected her to live more than a year.
She was his history, his childhood girlfriend, and he saw her through to the end.
Monroe, after Henny died, was obviously very lost. He came over one weekend and he said, I met this lady on the bus in New York, and she said she knew me from years ago. I don't really know if I knew her or not, but do you think that meant that she wanted me to call her? And I said, definitely.
And I got off the bus and I figuratively shrugged my shoulders and I said, he's not interested, and went home. Went to London the next day and totally forgot about him. I came home and there was a phone call.
I left a message. I'm Monroe, I met you on the bus. I'll call you back. I was afraid to leave my number. If I had the wrong number, I didn't want the wrong woman calling me back. But after 2.5 weeks, she was making arrangements for the wedding. So that's why I say my wife arranged the marriage.
Judy's great for him, he's great for Judy. They make a beautiful couple, and I'm very happy for them.
He was just so lovely to be with. And he has a great sense of humor. And he's a wonderful person.
I remember when we were kids, we used to get fresh eggs delivered to our house because my dad lent money to someone who was a chicken farmer and couldn't afford to pay him back, so he paid us back in eggs. He has a heart of gold, my dad.
There's a lot of people saying these stories, and it's like very hush-hush, and I don't think anybody will ever really find out how many people he helped along the way.
Monroe Milstein is a good person, a good father, and just a good human being.
My grandfather has like this kind of tough outside shell, but like once you get past that, you know, it's kind of like a soft inside. So a lot of people.
Really soft inside.
He'll just sit in a room and just watch everything what's going on. You won't even know he's in a room. He'll just sit down. It's his thing.
Everything he reads.
Very sharp memory.
Very, very clever.
And
very
he is
clever.
sharply intelligent.
Yeah,
He is.
he's very intelligent. But he's very nice and very humble. So we like him a lot.
He's lighthearted. My father likes to tell a joke. He likes hearing jokes. He likes to laugh. He likes to make people laugh.
Well, I once asked him, don't you have a car, a driver? And he says, yeah. He says, I do. He sits in the front of the bus with a cap on.
He's fun to be with, and he's loving, and he's a real wonderful guy.
He's always been very generous with us. He's always made a point to come out and see us and attend our family events.
And I think a big part of his success was that he wanted to make sure his children were taken care of and his grandchildren, and that just drove him to such success.
I say thank you for everything. If I haven't thanked you properly, I would say my appreciation is not fully being shown. I can never truly say thank you enough.
I'm so excited that he's found Judy and that he's happy and he doesn't have to work all the time anymore.
Mazel tov, Papi, on turning 80.
Happy birthday, best of wishes.
Hope to see you soon.
We really love you.
80 is a good start. I hope he lives a very long time after this. It's a good start of his life.
And I know that Grandpa Abe and Grandma Ann would be very proud at what you've done, and I wish you all the best.
I'm proud and happy to have him and to look up to him and to listen to